Hello, hello. Exciting news because we got a card that I managed to get to see a little bit earlier, and I've just been really waiting for it to be public knowledge. And it's Belle, Apprentice Inventor, Storyborn Hero Princess Inventor, 333 cost, one quester. All that stuff's pretty basic as a common. But what it does is it has an ability called What a Mess. During your turn, you may banish a chosen item of yours to play this character for free. And for Sapphire Steel, that opens up so much. I'll just mention firstly that you can definitely use this in Ruby Sapphire. I'm not saying this is only a buff to Sapphire Steel. It's definitely Ruby Sapphire can use it as well. The only issue is that Sapphire Steel gets basically 8 Popsicles because we get 4 Popsicles and we get 4 Force Spheres, and those are cards that when you play themselves, you draw a card as well. So they don't really affect your hand size. They're only real. Besides, just sometimes might heal something, or you might give something bodyguard. But overall, the point of them is just that you can cycle them and use Hyrams, and now we can use Belle with it. So Ruby Sapphire would struggle a little bit because they only get 4 Popsicles, and the rest of the items don't replace themselves. So if you use an Ice Block turn 1, then play this. You're 3 cards down in hand because you've inked, played Ice Block, then you popped it and played this. Whereas with a Popsicle or a Fortisphere, you haven't done that. You at least get the 1 card draw to keep your hand size fairly healthy, and you get a 3/3 on board. So I definitely think this is a really big boost to Sapphire Steel. But we will probably still see it in Ruby Sapphire Pay as well, which sucks, but oh well. Because the issue that Sapphire Steel's always had, if you spend a lot of time deck building, spend a lot of time in 20 lore, the thing that always comes up is we have no good one drops. Of course, this is a free ink cost card, but we have the ability to play it on turn one. Thinking as well, this is all theory based. We're going in with the idea that we can get this on turn one quite effectively. All we really need is one cost item and the Belle in hand. And then we get a 3/3 on board, which can basically just keep the board in check. The only thing it can't really trade up to is with a Daisy, but we just that doesn't matter really anyway. You just play this and you play something on 2, and then you can trade up with the Daisy. But everything else, it can start controlling the board. She's also a 3 cost, so she's basically in a sense going to do the same thing that Cinderella does. The 1 cost ballroom, I think it's called Ballroom Sensation, where she can sing 1, 2, and 3 cost songs as well. So she could sing your Strength of the Raging Fire or Let the Storm Rage on. So yeah, just overall the issues that kind of Sapphire Steel's had is the matchups where they were sort of winning, we started to lose a bit harder because we were losing that really early part of the game, where it used to be that you could just put a Smee on board and that was probably going to keep it in check till you play Quill into Tinkerbell. But everyone just plays cheap questers now. Everyone plays like 3 1 drops going wide like Purple does. So it got a bit harder to do that. But this is a card that very much buffs that. I'm also going to say, as much as I've publicly complained about the coil cards for Ruby Sapphire, because I think that card is just nuts. It just makes Sisu even better, which is something we just didn't need because Sisu was also really, really good. I don't think this card's broken. I don't think it's overly statted. I think when people start playing is they'll realize how many times they don't get this on turn one. Which, if you're mulliganing for it, I think you're going to get it more than 50% of the time, but you're still going to have times where you won't get it, and of course playing the one item on turn one is not the worst in the world. You still cycle and you get the item set up for her or for a Hiram, and then you can pop her out whenever you get her. That'd be mad even if like you miss her turn one and then turn two you play Smeet and then you pop the item to put her out as well because you drew into her. So yeah, I just think overall she's fairly balanced in that sense. Like you still need to get the item on turn one, and you need to get Belle, and like sometimes you just miss it. If you miss the item, then you've just got this Belle in hand that you're gonna have to hard play on 3, which you'd rather play like Pete or John Silver or something like that, or just Lawrence or just anything else. But yeah, I think overall it's a fairly statted card and it's pretty good, and it's just gonna basically give some more life to the deck. Because as much as I am a die-hard fan of Sapphire Steel and I think it's a very good color combo, it hasn't got the love it's really needed for the last 2 or 3 sets. But this one card by itself is almost like a sorry, thank you at the same time, because I just think it's so useful and so powerful. So I've made a couple lists. Like I've been testing in theory and crafting this for a little while now. I've of course going to start with the Kiwi updates because I still think Kiwi is very good, and I like the idea that the issue I found with Kiwi in testing is we're doing what Diggy Hole does, the Amber Steel deck, but we are not doing a lot of the things that they do particularly very well. The thing is, we have our Alice, we have our Pluto, we have our Cogsworth, but they have Cinderella and Rapunzel, and both those cards are very, very powerful in this low to the ground sort of meta where you're dealing with small amounts of damage, and you need to, if you're able to tempo swing and take out a Calhoun or a Smee, that can sometimes just mean that you win the game because you run away with it so early on, and they can't really put any pressure down. But if we now have the ability to basically do what Cinderella does, we do in theory. Okay, I'm saying that I don't want anyone in the comments to like rip me apart and say that all of this doesn't make sense because she's not that good. In theory, we can kind of do what Cinderella does now by getting a three singer on board on turn one. She's also a 3/3, so when she sings and turns sideways, she'll 1/1 trade the Calhoun or the Smee that runs into her, because that's also an issue of Cinderella, is whenever you sing, they should have a Calhoun set up, or a 3 drop or something like that if you're on the draw, and they can just run in and take it out. So yeah, she's not that great, but in this one we've got this big body as well. So even if you miss the song as well, you've now got a 3/3 on board that can just start trading up. So you can just do a lot more with a 3/3 than you can with a 1/2. Of course, she's got a condition where she needs to play the item first, so we'll have to see in theory how often we actually get this down. But yeah, we've kind of taken that thing and we've leveled it out now and said like, well, we now have our own Cinderella type thing. So the only thing they really have the benefit of us is the Rapunzel, and we also have Alice Cogsworth. This is two cards I think they would very much like, especially Cogsworth. They would very much like to have Cogsworth in their deck, but we get to play that in ours because we play Sapphire. So we're kind of evening out the field between them of cards that they have that are more powerful than ours. You know, before they had two cards that were more powerful and we had two, but now we've kind of evened it and we have like three cards or two cards and one that matches their power and one card just Rapunzel at this point. Because I don't think Daisy and Lilo and the two Questers are that powerful because they're just two Questers. At the end of the day, like any deck can just put two Questers in their deck. Um, so yeah, this is the sort of direction of going. Of course, the first thing I saw when I saw this, and it was sent to me, is I really want Belle to sing Let the Storm Rage On and sing Strength, because I've been testing with Diggy Hole, and the ability to get that early tempo swing into a formidable board is amazing, and that'll be even better for us because we want to set up Alice Pluto. If we're able to start controlling the board and start removing anything that could pop the Pluto, then we go into Alice Pluto, and then we start just questing sideways, and we still have this Belle that can either keep singing or just trade in, and take something out. I think that's just awesome. It sounds fairly hard to set up. I will do some testing videos with me and Ali Sweetie. I don't know, she making the rounds on Twitter. My better half, who's really good at the game as well. So we'll get some testing done in on that, because I have some of these cards. Don't have the Tower. I think the Tower is going to be interesting. It's probably best that I just walk through the list before I say I'm going to test it. So of course it's the same core. It's the Alice Pluto combo. The benefit that we have now is that we can play the Bell on turn one and we can start throwing out these songs. Of course, the thing of Kiwi is we didn't have any items, so we're going to have to put items in, which means we can use the Bell, and then of course maybe we want to put Let the Storm Rage on his Strength just so we have a higher chance of hitting the songs on turn one as well. And of course they can be sung by the the 3 cost characters and stuff like that, so they can be used later on. If we're playing items down, and recycling them with the big tower, I think we don't need Dock anymore. We need Hiram. And if we're inking to 6 ink now, which we will be because of the Tamatoa that we've added, the new legendary Tamatoa card, that we'll just zoom in there if anyone wants to read it. It means if we were to top deck Hiram and we had some items out, playing Hiram and having that 2 ink spare would be the exact same as playing Dock, because usually what happens is, especially in Diggy Hole, is you have 4 ink, you play Dock, and then you play like a Smee or a Calhoun or whatever you draw that you can afford to play. And we should be able to do that with this because we're at 6 ink, we'll have 2 ink over, and we'll be able to afford to spam whatever we want. And even if that turn would be play Hiram, pop an item, and play a couple more items or something like that, we cycle through and we have like a healthy board. We can start using the items as well. I think the bodyguard would be actually fairly useful. Sometimes just to make really awkward board states, like you could just give bodyguard to Mickey or something like that and force like some decks to have to challenge into it. The Porp as well would be quite interesting to use. Overall, I just think it's really fun. A different direction with it. The card that we have cut that I'm most interested in is not Baymax. I think Baymax can be cut because he was kind of just reach in the deck. He wasn't that needed. I'm sorry everyone who like thought Baymax was utterly important to the deck. He wasn't. He was really cool, but he's not that amazing. So we can. But John Silver is not in here right now, and I definitely want to find room for him. Maybe just 2 copies of John Silver. 3 would be the most optimal, but he's definitely the card I want to find the room for in here. And it's like I say, it's in testing. Bell singing Let the Storm Rage On is pretty good when you get it working, but it's not amazing when you don't. So Let the Storm Rage On copies can go. The deck was fine without Let the Storm Rage On. And as I say, the difference between that Cinderella and the Bell card is that Belle is just a good body. So even if she's not singing removal, she's just going to be a good body to trade up with. Like she'll take out the 1 drop and then she'll like 1/1 the 2 drop. So she's just got so much utility there, even if you don't get the songs out. So that's just, yeah, that seems very interesting. Of course, when you deck build right now, because it's set 7 and like Everyone's scared of Ruby Sapphire. I'm scared of Ruby Sapphire. I'm playtesting with Ruby Sapphire because they look so powerful in the next set because they just got straight buff to a deck that was already like 30% meta share. We have to think, how do we beat Ruby Sapphire? So we keep some Gantus around, keep the Tamatoa, we keep McDuck Mana. The two cards as well worth mentioning that have gone in and out of testing. It's just trying to find room for them. Is Aerial, the 6 cost Aerial that if you have more items than your opponent, you get to quest for 5. Interesting card. It seems pretty good. The only reason you'd include it is to beat the Ruby Sapphire matchup and maybe increase the Ruby Amethyst matchup. But the issue there is that you're most likely not going to have that many items as the Ruby Sapphire player because if they're now playing Coil, Ice Block, Porpsicles, Dimes, and whatever they're playing, I've seen Marisa's workshops around. It's going to be a real hard fight with only 8 items to actually beat the amount of items that they have on their board. So I think at best should be a 3 quester. The other card as well that we're testing out is Glean, which never really gets seen, and I don't have it on the screen right now. It's a 1 cost action, banish an item and gain 2 lore. Just means that if you're at the late game where they've reset the board and you're just kind of in top deck mode, and maybe you have some items set out or you draw into some items, you can play the item and just like play Glean to gain 2 lore. And also Glean as well can be used on your opponent's items. They do gain 2 lore, but you could say banish a coil or banish a dime or whatever and just slow them down or you know do whatever you need to do. So it's a very versatile card. I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting. The other issue as well with this direction with Kiwi is we're getting less character dense. So I think Hiram's on 4 might be quite common just to keep the engine going, especially into steel decks where it will be play the Hiram, draw a few more cards. Next turn quest with the Hiram, draw a few more cards, and then you can like fight into the later game. Because Hiram in a sense is kind of a conditional Rapunzel. You get 2 cards, it's just item based. I'm not going to keep comparing this to Diggy that much. I don't think he's that much like Rapunzel, but he is a 4 cost 1/6 instead of a 1/5, and he does draw you some cards on play. So yeah, I think it's going to be really fun to learn how to test to play with this. Of course, before with the Kiwi version with Doc, you would just draw Doc, get your cards, throw them on the board. Say, have you got an answer? No. Well, I win the game. This one will have a bit more like intuitive, bit more agency with it. The mulligan won't be curve 1, 2, 3 as it has been before. There might be just a bit more depth to it, which is going to be really, really interesting. As well, you can also see that we have the Belle as the 1 drop, of course. We have the Mickey as the only other character actual 1 drop in the deck. Of course, you got the items, which I think on the play you're fine if you just play 1 item and then you go into and you miss the Belle and you go into Calhoun Smee. I think that's fine. But on the draw, you're definitely going to be one hunting for getting a character down the board. Bella will be the most optimal, but if it needs to be Mickey, it needs to be Mickey, and you can play that down. So yeah, I think overall, I think this is a really interesting direction. It just needs like that real hard testing of, all right, we've played this and we're really missing the 1 drops, or John Silver will be so great here because everyone's on Maui Shark and it's really painful. I will mention as well though, I will put the John Silvers back in, I think, but playing Diggy Hole, I didn't realize how effectively I could deal with the Maui Sharks just using cards like the Storm Rage on the Strength, because if they run a character into your card, they take some damage. If they don't have a Popsicle to heal it, then you can let the Storm Rage on a Strength just to finish it off. So those cards in there are pretty good. I know a lot of people are saying like just include Zeus, and I don't think we needed a direct hard answer to that stuff to the Maui Shark right now is what I'm feeling. But you know, DK piece lists are doing so well. Maui Sharks are probably going to be 3 to 4x copies in every deck, so we definitely do need to be thinking about Maui Shark. So yeah, John Silver definitely goes in. And just as a bonus sort of thing, I think as well the Bell card is so good. I think you could just fit it into wheel, into no wheel. I think into any Sapphire Steel list that runs the 8, the Porpsicles and the Fortispheres, 8 copies of them. I think you definitely could just run this. Also as well with Bell, the item that you're bursting or breaking, or I can't even remember how to describe it, isn't it? Destroying or banishing. It's Lorcana's banishing. Sorry, I play too many TCGs and I forget what's what. Of course, the item that you banish has to be worth the reason of putting a 3/3 on board. So you can't really banish a quill, or you can. There'll probably be like these weird niche scenarios where you do banish the quill. You definitely can't banish a dime. So even though this build has more items in it, you aren't getting more consistency with Bell because it would just be weird to be banishing those. But yeah, I think the new Toa card as well, just to mention, is going to be really good because if you're going on your curve, especially with Kiwi, even with this with the Hirams, you're going on curve, you've got items into the discard. You want more ways to interact with that. Sometimes just Toa getting 1 item when you have 8 ink is not going to be the best thing you can do. So now you've got this Tamatoa that can interact with it a lot earlier. And then you can cheat out things like play an item for free When maybe been really hard to get to quest because it's a 4/5 on turn 6, but it probably will get a quest in on quite a few decks. I think it's really that on play that is the best thing. But of course, in this deck, you can cheat out the dime a lot earlier. In this one, you can just cheat out an item that would give you some more card draw. But definitely Tamatoa and the Bell, but the Bell's common, so everyone will have probably have 4x of them. But the Tamatoa is definitely one we're gonna have to hunt for on set launch. I'm gonna have to spend a few pennies on that. But yeah, it's just really interesting to see this new Bell card that's come out. It's one that I've been very excited for. I think there's some really good fun to have there, and it's really worth exploring. Hopefully, she lives up to the hype as well. I can see maybe people, missing the item and having the bell, or having the bell and no item on turn one, and then ending up just hating the card because she's not consistent enough. But I think give her time, give her testing, and she'll be a great card. I think that's also. I'm gonna give another tangent before I end it. I think that's another reason why I think I like her in Kiwi more. In this deck, if you miss the turn one of her, just kind of just ink. You might throw her on the board, just because you throw her on the board. Also as well, popping a Porpsicle is kind of rough in this deck because you're ramping, you're putting a lot in the inkwell. You kind of need the items so you can use Hiram to draw more cards, to ink more cards. But in this deck, it's like the only thing you really have is that, like I said, that Hiram draw in the end game, or maybe on 4. Belle is just really good to get out early, very on, and even on turn 3, if you just play her, she's like vanilla effect compared to Pete or John Silver, who are both 3/3s as well. So you can even just play her on curve if you miss the item. So I think overall, I think she fits into Kiwi a lot more, especially as well the new cards like Lady Cluck that we've seen. And a load of other of the Sapphire Steel combo cards like the Aladdin that we've seen as well, which I think is just a steel card, who lets you cheat out 3 cost like characters earlier. Like there you go, you can cheat her out, even if you miss the item. So I think she fits into Kiwi a bit more, but of course I think she's just very good into every Sapphire Steel list. So I hope that tangent was good, and I hope someone out there actually enjoyed it.